Welcome to Person and Family Centered Planning. My name is Matthew Kruger from the training department. If you have any questions after the module, please feel free to reach out. You can reach me at 810-424-6093, or you can email the training department at training@genhs.org. All right, we're just gonna quickly review and do an overview of person and family-centered planning. Of course, person-centered planning is a concept where the person receiving services is truly in control of the way that they want to live their life and kind of guide their services. So we're going to take a look at what that means. Also, there's a really well-written policy. I'm going to attach that to our folder so you can find the whole policy in the folder, and you can also find references throughout the PowerPoint. That policy number is 0620695. So why is person-centered planning important? We'll start off with the Michigan Mental Health Code that guides a lot of our practices. It establishes the right for all individuals to have their individual plan of service developed through the person-centered planning process, regardless of age, disability, or residential setting. When we talk about family-centered planning, that refers to a child with their parent or another responsible adult, maybe a guardian. Okay, there's 8 essential elements to person-centered planning, so take a look at that. It is a process, meaning that it does not just take place once a year. It's an ongoing process that really guides the person's plan of service and treatment every time something takes place. So if you think of person-centered planning as maybe the pre-planning and then the individual plan of service meeting, it's bigger than that. It keeps going all throughout the year. It encourages strengthening and developing natural supports. So a lot of times somebody might come to us and need help, and maybe their network of natural supports is really small, or maybe they've been pretty isolated. And it tends to happen pretty often, and sometimes we're the only support that they have, but we want to kind of help them to grow and develop those natural supports. Maybe they have a long lost brother or a friend that they haven't talked to in a while. So we want to make sure that we are drawing them in, of course, with all the procedures in place, release of information and consent from that person. So we can kind of build up that person's network. People do better when they have a network. Okay, one of the ways that you can do that is just helping the person get out in the community and do meaningful activities. That might mean employment, that might mean volunteering somewhere, could mean going to a church or just getting out and about and going to the park and coming across people. So it's important to address that. The option of who will facilitate the meeting. So the person getting services gets to choose who facilitates their meeting. It may be a supports coordinator, case manager, therapist. It may be an independent facilitator, which is a really great option as well, which we'll get into a little bit later. There should always be a pre-planning meeting before the actual individual plan of service meeting. At that pre-planning meeting, you're going to work with the person to find out a variety of different things, including, but not limited to, where the meeting is going to be held, when the meeting is going to be held, who's going to be invited to the meeting, okay? Topics that will be discussed, their dreams, desires, goals, that kind of stuff. Okay, so of course there is a form that goes along with pre-planning, the input form. That might take place over the course of more than one conversation or meeting with that person, but there definitely needs to be some pre-planning to set up the individual plan of service meeting to run exactly how that person chooses, or as close as possible. Okay. We want to be able to provide potential support and or treatment options. Okay, so that may be something that comes from GHS or a provider, or it may be something that is found in the community at a different organization. Okay, so choice is very important. We want to be able to let that person choose the route that they want to go. Ongoing opportunities to express their needs. Like I said at the top of this slide, person-centered planning is a process. It's not just a one-time event. So you might be connecting with that person a couple times a month. You might be connecting with them quarterly, but they need to have an opportunity to express how things are going, if any of their needs are being met, if they have unmet needs that they hadn't expressed before that they're just now kind of realizing that they have. So it's kind of an ongoing process. And then opportunities to provide feedback. How are things going? What needs to change? Is everything going on track like we planned? Okay. What about children? So kids should still have a say in how the treatment plan is running, but of course we know with youngsters that parents or legal guardians are going to have the final say. Okay. So let's look at some indicators that will let us know that person or family centered planning is actually being implemented. We'll start off at a systemic level. So an organization can start with policy. Like I said, our policy is included in the folder where you find this video, and that policy addresses the need for person-centered planning, why it's needed, okay, standards, processes, how that should kind of look, and that gives us some structure to work with. Evidence that the individual is informed of their right to person-centered planning. So they should know what that means. It used to be that the clinicians or professionals would kind of steer the ship and tell the person getting services, this is what you need to do, this is what's not going well, and this is how you're going to fix it. Okay, it's no longer that way. The person's in control. They let us know what they want to work on. Okay, but that needs to be evidenced in annual forms, progress notes, things like that. So the person gets informed of person-centered planning processes at intake and then annually, and it's a conversation that can happen all year round. But there needs to be evidence that that conversation did happen. Okay, evidence that the agency's quality improvement system is actively seeking feedback from individuals. So that can happen through auditing and through conversations, things like that. Evidence that staff are trained in person and family-centered planning. So of course, annually we do a training to make sure everybody's refreshed on it. We look for any kind of updates to the standards, any kind of new tools that might come out, and include those into the training, into the annual training. Also, at GHS, we train our clinical staff in person-centered planning. Okay, that's a in-person class with, questions and answers and feedback right in the classroom. Okay, and then, of course, always encouraging people, if you have questions, reach out. There's all kinds of different conferences, and sometimes you can find person-centered planning as a specific subtopic at one of those conferences, and that's great. For the individual, we want to see that the family or person was provided with information regarding rights to person-centered planning. Okay, so we have informational packets and rec cards that you can find on each floor in any language that you could possibly want. We can get that printed down in. Okay, so that can happen annually at intake and all throughout the year. Family or person gets to choose who to invite. Again, we want to have a positive meeting. We want to talk about strengths and what's going well and what that person wants to work on for the upcoming year at least. Okay, they get to decide who their allies are, who the people that are positive and helpful to them, and invite them. Family chooses the place and time. They might choose at the family home. They might choose somewhere with some privacy, maybe a restaurant, their favorite restaurant, whatever they want. We're going to try to accommodate that. Family chooses treatment. We don't make anybody do anything they don't want to do. So that person or that family can choose what kind of treatment options that they think would work best for them. Okay, family preferences were considered. Okay, sometimes there's limitations as far as maybe how many units we can authorize based on Medicaid standards or different standards, but we want to make sure that we consider all family preferences and do the best to fulfill them that we can. We want to see that progress was made toward valued outcomes, okay, that those were reviewed at minimum at least quarterly, but typically that's going to happen more often than that, maybe monthly, maybe a couple of times a month. But we want to see that measurable goals and outcomes are being looked at for progress. Okay, if something isn't going well, then we want to have a dispute resolution and appeal mechanism. So if in the judgment of the person representing the responsible mental health agency, an individual or family member on behalf of a child or minor requests inpatient treatment or specific mental health support or service for which appropriate alternatives for the individual exist that are of equal or greater effectiveness and at equal or lower cost, the responsible mental health agency has certain responsibilities. We need to meet with the person or the family and talk about why and explore the reasoning for why they are requesting whatever treatment it is that may be more expensive or more restrictive. We want to investigate some alternatives, make sure that person is aware of some other kind of treatments or less restrictive options that might be out there. And then make sure that we can come to a mutually agreeable conclusion to move forward. Okay, but you got to have that conversation. Make sure the family or the person is very clear and understanding of all their options. And make sure that the clinician is understanding and aware of the reasoning why that person or family might choose a different option and go from there. If you have any questions, please reach out to the training department. This is just a brief overview. I encourage you to review the policy. It has some really great information in it, and have a wonderful day.